This is Nicholas Alexiou from the Department of Sociology at CUNY College and the Hellenic American Project in the series of oral histories interviews. Here for the record, we have the film director, Mr. Zafiris Haitidis, who is recording the session, and today we're very honored and happy to have an interview with a very successful businessman, not only for the Greek American community, but for the general American society. It is a landmark in the area where he is, the Aphrodite Bakery and Cafe. Mr. Jordan IORDANIS, and let's start by stating your name and where you were born and grew up.
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. It's an honor. Thank you for coming and visiting our store. My name is Jordan KARALAZARIDIS. I'm the owner of APHRODITE'S Sweets Bakery Cafe in Whitestone, New York. We've been in the Whitestone area for the past 17 years. We're primarily a cafe bakery that produces Greek pastries and non-Greek pastries, and that's pretty much it, I guess.
Let's start with some of your background, some information about your background, the place of birth and where you grew up, and the roots of the family.
Sure. I was actually born here in Queens, New York. We left when I was 8 years old to move to Greece in 1983, January actually. We moved to Athens in January, 1983. My family background on my father's side comes from Asia Minor. They're Pontian. So my father was born in Greece, but his father was born in Turkey. On my mother's side, her father was also born in Asia Minor, in Aivali. But she was born on the island of Lesbos. But she grew up in Athens as well, so we moved there. She wanted to go back home, so I guess it was a maternal choice.
So who came first in America?
My father in 1962.
And he immigrated from the island or from Athens?
No, my father actually from the city of Thessaloniki. He's from up north in Macedonia. He moved with his family, his father, his mother, and his two siblings. They met here in New York.
Do you know how they met?
Believe it or not, I think they met in a nightclub.
A Greek nightclub?
A Greek nightclub. Bouzoukia.
That's nice.
Yeah. They were both young, and they were in their early 20s. And that was the reason my mom stayed. My mom she was going to move back to Greece. But she stayed, and they made a family together.
Do you know what were their professional activities?
My father was a furrier from 1964 till 2003, if I'm not mistaken. And my mother, she was and still is a hairdresser till this day.
It was the fur industry was a big industry for the Greek Americans, but a very difficult job. Do you remember?
Yes, of course. I used to help my father. My father moved back to Greece in 1980. My parents were divorced, and so he opened a fur factory in the city of Castalia. So I would help, in the summers, and yes, I'm very knowledgeable in the ins and outs of the fur industry.
So your early years, you grew up here in the States?
Yeah, I left here when I was like 8.5, and I came back when I was almost 18.
So how is it for a young child at 8 years old to go back to Greece?
It was a culture shock. It's funny that you said that, because I remember going to the library while I was still living in New York as a child, and I picked up a book, and it said Greece. So on the cover of the book had a picture of the Parthenon. And I'm opening the book and I see pictures of antiquities and Hercules, and I'm thinking that if I go back to Greece, it's going to be like that. and I had visited Greece as you know when I was really young, so I didn't remember what it looked like. So it was not what I thought it was going to be, but nonetheless, it was beautiful.
How was the how Greek or how American was the environment you grew up at home? Speaking Greek at home and English outside?
My mom spoke Greek to us, but again, like we grew up in Long Island, so it was a very how do I say, like an American society. So we didn't have like Greek friends, so I spoke very poor Greek. And my sister, she spoke a little better than I did. But I was limited to speaking like Greek, very, very limited to say the least.
It's funny that you say that because I know that you speak Greek very well, and later I hope we have a chance that we speak a little bit in Greek because the language you have, it's very nice, and I would like to document that too. But you had Greek music at home.
Yeah, of course.
You received news from Greece.
As a child, I really don't remember. My mom played music all the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember visiting my grandparents in Astoria, and my grandfather would always say, go downstairs, que fera mu efemerida. And he would say, θέλω να μου φέρεις τον εθνικό κήρυκα. And I'd be like, okay. And I would go downstairs, I would not remember the name of the newspaper. So, that was my exposure to Greek news, I guess, at a young age, and that was pretty much it. Mm-hmm. So.
But the family, they kept in touch with family members in Greece.
Of course, yes. We, so, to my knowledge, we went to Greece at least 2-3 times since, like, from birth till 8 years old. But we had a lot of family that would visit, and so, yeah, we had, again, back then it was different, you know, it wasn't, like, not everybody had phones in Greece, so it was very hard to communicate. But we had visitors. I remember like, my mother's family would visit a lot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess, you know, now it's, you know, the absolute opposite. Now we can talk to our family in Greece on, you know, on Skype or on WhatsApp or, you know, on your iPhone. So it's, you know,
so
things have changed, to say the least.
And then you went back and you continue your elementary school and high school later in Athens?
Yes, in the town of Agia Paraskevi, which is a suburb of Athens. Agia Paraskevi was a very diverse community. It had a lot of families that were from different backgrounds. It was a lot of like Greek, Italian, Greek, German, Greek, French. So a lot of children did speak a second language within the community. So I didn't feel like the Americano, like they would say. Yeah. You know, I didn't feel ostracized. Or I didn't feel different. It was a very it was a nice mishmash of different cultures. Mm-hmm. Plus the city itself had an American college, which was Dury, and so I always had like friends of like, you know, American background or Greek American background, or, you know, some sort of English speaking, you know, background. It was nice that you had that, and it made it easier for me growing up in the first 2-3 years of living in Greece.
Another very interesting thing in your narrative, it is this transatlantic movement. Born here, going to Greece, and then how you decided to return to America?
My sister had moved 2 years prior, her last year of high school, and my mom thought that it would be a good idea for us to move back as well.
Which decade is that?
1991 is when I came back. End of 91.
Which is still considered a good decade for Greece.
It was. I didn't want to leave. I was enamored with the country. I loved Greece. I still love Greece to this day. It was hard. It was very hard for me the first 2 years. Even though I spoke the language, It was that was a culture shock in comparison to like being a young child moving to Greece. The Greeks are traditionally a warm culture. They're engaging. They have the word philoxenia. So I never felt a stranger. Even though I was a stranger in the country, I was an American. Coming back here, it was just hard to understand the American culture. Was very different to me. Like watching TV or watching movies is one thing. Coming to New York after like a 9-year lapse, it was different.
It is interesting what you said. I would like to know if you came back to New York or another place, but before we go there, you said I was an American in Greece. You mean you had to have a visa or something?
So, even though I had the right to become a Greek citizen, my parents were both born there, and my sister was born there as well. We were living there, I was living there as a foreign citizen. I actually had to have a visa. I would renew my visa every 2 years. So yes, I was a foreigner in my own country. I know. It's κωμικό τραγικό που λέμε.
And when you came back to the States, you came to New York or
Yes.
another place?
Yes, I was born in New York. And
Because-
I had family here. I had my mother's siblings. My father's brother was living in New York at the time. So it was eventual. If I was going to move back, I was going to move to New York.
And you're a young man, you have a lot of energy, you want to do something with your life, and what is your decision at
So
that point?
I started going to school, and then within 6 months, I guess I fell in love with money, and that happens when you work in the restaurant business at a young age. And I made the mistake at that time of not finishing school. So I worked as a young boy in cafes and restaurants. I guess it's in the blood of the Greek American, right?
Greek-owned businesses?
Yes, it was a Greek pastry shop, just like here.
How was it to work for a Greek?
Different. It was different back then, but it was
How you doing?
nice because I kind of felt like at home a little bit in the sense that I had interactions with other Greeks, and you were able to speak your language again, and I made friendships within the store. It was nice. It was a learning experience for me. It was something different. I was a young boy that moved back to the United States that wanted to make money so I could survive, because my mom was still in Greece. So it was my sister and I, in our late teens, and we needed to work to survive. We literally lived to survive. We worked to survive. We had to work. There was no other way.
Yeah, and in the 90s, it was a different economy in the States. Everything started getting more expensive.
It was a lot cheaper back then. Life was cheaper back then. But it was, I feel today that life was easier back then. For not that I was an immigrant, but for immigrants still coming to the United States, there was ways of making money and surviving and not having to scrape, let's say, to make ends meet. It was, but again, for me, it was, I couldn't compare it to Greece because, we had a different lifestyle in Greece.
So when you came to New York, you felt that you came back home?
I felt Greece was home. I felt Greece was home. I felt like I belonged, but I didn't.
So, if someone asks you, if your children ask you, how you identify yourself?
So today I view America very differently than I did 30 years ago. I love being here. I do miss Greece tremendously, but I love living here.
And for you, it is somehow compatible to be both Greek and an American?
I think I'm equal half on both sides. I feel myself fully Greek, and I feel myself fully American. But that's impossible, so I'm half and half.
And you continue to be in contact with Greece as far as concerns news, music?
Everything, yes, of course. I either read or watch the news daily, multiple times a day. And I have, like many friends that I still, communicate with, or family. It's a lot easier today. We have social media that's like a information overload. It's kind of hard not to know what's going on around the world.
What are some elements of the Greek culture that you think they are very important, you want to hold on? And to transmit it to your children, to the next generation?
History. And it's not only like ancient history or Neo-Hellenic history or religious history. The history of the Greek transcends through many different centuries. We have many different stories that we can talk about. And I literally try to tell my children that, we come from a small little country that has a ton of history. And I always try to when I say, we're going to go to Greece in the summer, and it's not only about seeing the islands, and it's not only about visiting the ancient antiquities or the the beautiful little restaurants. There's many different aspects of history that we need to, be aware of.
Because of the nature of your business, you come in contact not only with the Greek American community, but people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
When they know that you're Greek, how they approach that? It is a positive thing to be a Greek or not? You felt any kind of discrimination?
No. No, there is a stigma within the, within the eye of the non-Greek, in the sense where most Americans view Greeks as restaurateurs, and that's it. Greeks can only do restaurants, or Greeks are. But I think, as a whole, they love Greeks because we're a warm culture. So it's plus we do own a lot of restaurants, and they say you win somebody's heart through his stomach, right? But no, I don't feel any. I don't sense any
So you have friends who are also Greek
many.
and non-Greeks. So.
I have many friends that are non-Greeks, and I'm happy that I do.
Mm-hmm. It is important for you that your business is in a neighborhood like this one in Queens that is still a visible Greek American community, or you can be in any other neighborhood.
No, I think we're a business that can probably be successful anywhere. There's certain products that we have that transcend into any culture or any background. But I'm happy I'm here. I love being in Queens. I find Queens being the most diverse. It actually is the most diverse borough in New York City. And I grew up here since the early '90s, so I have many friends in this neighborhood, and I feel like this is my home.
You ever thought to go back and live in Greece?
There's days that I wake up and I'm saying to myself, I'm like, it'd be nice to be home. But I have children now. I have made my nest here. It would be very hard for me to say, I'm going to move back to Greece. Maybe later in life, when I want to hang my shoes and not work anymore, and maybe live a more comfortable life, more relaxed life. It'd be nice to move back to Greece.
Since you mentioned the children, this is an idea about the next generation. Do you think that the next generation is going to continue speaking Greek or feel Greek? Visiting Greece is something that can help towards that direction?
Yes, immensely. I don't know if the language will continue as strong as it has in previous generations of Greek Americans. Both my children have gone to Greek school since the age of 4. I see my son not being able to speak Greek freely. He has a hard time. My daughter speaks it a lot better than he does. It's hard due to the fact, I think, that this generation of parents that were born here also speak English as a primary language. So it's natural for them to speak English at home. So I think the language won't be lost, but won't be at the, let's say, at the levels that were spoken 10, 20, 30, 40 years prior.
But they're going to continue feeling.
That's the one thing I noticed when I visit other states that have Greek communities that don't speak Greek or speak limited Greek, and they still have they're very Hellenocentric. Like they identify as Greek before anything else, and that's something that I guess it's not only it's cultural, it's also, I guess, in the DNA. Greeks love their country.
Let's talk about more specifically about this great place, the Aphrodite sweet shop and cafe. I came across not very long time ago on an American newspaper giving a high rating of the coffee you offer and other things. Tell us about that.
It was news to me. I had no idea. A colleague of yours, not a coworker, a colleague, sent me the article. I don't know. I think it was like a year ago or 2 years ago, rating us as top 5 Greek coffee places in the United States. I was pleasantly shocked, to be honest. Yeah, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. And I don't advertise. I didn't I think I posted it once when it first happened. But it's truly an honor.
And that shows the appreciation of American society towards honest and good business, regardless of ethnicity and race.
I find that Greek is in. Greek food, Greek pastries, Greek coffees, not only in New York, all over the country. You visit other cities and you find Greek restaurants everywhere, and people know what frappe is, and people know what certain pastries are, and they're asking for galaktobouriko, which is you can't even pronounce it. Greeks can't even pronounce galaktobouriko. But I think Greek is very popular now.
All my students know how to say baklava.
Baklava. Well, baklava is not in Greek, but it's an adopted Greek pastry.
I would like to discuss the story, how you entered this particular, part of the industry, the sweet shop, because Greek had a long tradition. Is a long tradition with the sweet shops.
So as a youngster, I worked in places like this. I wasn't in the restaurant business for 7 years prior to buying the store. I bought the store, by the way. I didn't open the store. So I was working in an industry that dealt with machinery, dry cleaning machinery, and it was a family-owned business, and I found myself stagnant. I wasn't going anywhere, and I had saved money. I was still fairly young, and I wanted to make a move, and I walked into this bakery, and I was approached by the owner back then that was trying to sell the business, and I don't know, something clicked. It's like, I said, I've done this before. I can do it again, I guess. And 17 years later, I'm still here. I think I'm going to stay for a while.
The sweets shop industry, although it has its glamour, is a very difficult
It is.
business.
Holidays.
How you deal with the social life and you know the demand of the work that you have to be present and overview.
The most difficult part
you know.
is working on all major holidays. Actually, we're open 365 days a year. The biggest problem that I found, I mean, hardest problem for me was not being at home on holidays. We close early and I would eventually get home, but it's not the same. You know, like, people need their sweets. It's, you know, people, especially the Greek community, it's common for Greeks to bring pastries for the holiday, Christmas, Easter, New Year's.
And another thing that now is getting into the American society, the name days.
Yeah. Well, that's been, part of Greek culture for centuries. Yeah, we, all the big name days are usually busy days for us. And it's something, I think, it's kind of newer for the Greek American culture, in the sense that, like, I remember, let's say 10 years ago, like the holidays, a big name day would be kind of busy. Now it's like very busy. So I guess it's something that's more prevalent now than it was in past years.
What is a typical working day? What time you have to be here to overlook the whole process of baking?
I'm usually here early in the morning, and it depends on the day. I can't really say. I'm usually here like 10 to 14 hours a day.
But there's a whole chain in this production until something comes out to the display cases. You have to produce. How you make the decision what to produce? How do you know what to produce? What to create rather?
We've been doing this for a long time. So the bakers have their own schedule. They know when and how often they need to produce certain products. We daily make lists of things that we need, and things are prepared. It gets where I truly step in to mandate what needs to be done on the holidays. The store's been, I'm not going to say autopilot, but everybody has they
have their routines.
They have their routines, and there's certain things that are done on a daily basis, certain things done on a weekly basis. But yeah, the holidays is where I step in.
How about the part of the suppliers? Do you make business with Greeks, non-Greeks? How is your relationship with?
Well, my main bakery supplier is a Greek company, Greek-owned company, and I'm very, very, very close with them as well. We've been doing business for the past 17 years, and they're a reputable company. But it has nothing to do with background. I'll be honest. I don't think that we should only be ethnocentric and say I'm going to choose a Greek supplier just for the fact of being Greek. A business is a business. It doesn't matter, what background the company, who owns the company, let's say. Do I deal with other Greeks? I do, actually. I have my vegetable supplier happens to be Greek. Actually, I deal with a couple more. I have, I deal with like 3-4 different Greek companies, maybe more.
A place like yours is a place also for socialization for the people. Do you see that?
Of course. I think most cafes are like that. Actually, all cafes are like that. I mean, I guess cafes are a social networking spot. Like, we didn't need Facebook to find friends. We would go to the cafe and find friends, correct? Before cell phones, before, I guess even through pigeons, we can find somebody, you know, like send messages, meet us at the cafe. I mean, things have changed so much that, you know, like, it's great to still have places like this that you're able to go and see people, make friendships, socialize. You know, I'm happy to have a place like this. I feel like I'm blessed to meet new people every day.
So do you think that it is something that the Greeks, along with the Italians, contributed to the appreciation of the socialization of all this, having coffee?
I mean, cafes are prominent in the south of Europe. So yes, the Greeks, the Italians, the French, the Portuguese, the Spaniards. Here in New York, definitely. I mean, most cafes are owned by, I guess, Greeks and Italians. But you know what? I find that a lot of new cultures, like people from different ethnic backgrounds, are getting into the business, which is, for me, is the more the merrier. A lot of cafes in the Queens area are owned by Asian people as well, and they're very busy as well. And I think that's, you know, it's
and also
a plus.
It is a free competition with the big chain companies, which is
like the Starbucks and stuff like that. You know, I think that.
But it's not the neighborhood feeling that.
Yes, and for me, that's not competition. And can I be honest? Competition is good. I think it keeps you honest. But I mean, you go to Starbucks and you see people sitting in a chair on their electronics and they're not socializing. Here, when people come in, it's funny how, like, if they didn't know each other, they eventually did after they left the store. And that's true. That's not like a tagline.
So if a young Greek comes, let's say, to New York and wants to start some kind of business, what is your advice?
Work very hard. Nothing comes easy.
So, being here in this extraordinary environment, I would like us to share if you have a signature product, something that you really like.
For the past 12 years, we've been making this traditional Greek pastry that's called kaltsunia. We took the concept of the pastry, changed the ingredients, changed the way it's prepared, and we call them empanadas. It's by far the most popular product in the store. We're known throughout the tri-state. It's a simple little Greek pastry with a cream cheese filling that I love, and I guess the community really, really loves.
How long it takes to prepare it?
It's a handmade product. It takes many, many hours. From beginning to end, if you were to make, let's say, a small batch, about 2 to 3 hours.
This is really something. Because you're a person who has traveled not only to Greece but also to other cities and states of America, and you came across with other Greek American communities. If you compare the other communities outside of New York, do you see any similarities or differences?
The only thing I can say is the camaraderie, the brotherhood, being Greek. Leaving New York, Greeks do live, you know, far apart from each other. Usually, there's very small clusters, unlike, let's say, Queens or parts of Brooklyn or Nassau County that has a larger community. But the common, let's say, the one part that identifies Greek communities within the United States is the fact that, like, the brotherhood, like the Greeks, you know, they go to church, they know their fellow Greeks, they know where they're from, what part of Greece they came from. It's like, I'll give you an example. If I visited Chicago on more than one occasion, I have family there, and there are parts of, let's say, the Chicago suburbs that have like a little more like concentrated Greeks, but nothing like New York again. But a lot of the Greeks know each other there. It's funny because in Chicago there's a big cluster of Arcadians, people from the Arcadia, and so when you ask a Greek from Chicago, where are you from, and you don't ask them what part of Greece you're from, what part of Tripoli or Arcadia you're from, and that's a fact. I know that's a good indication of how Greeks are in Chicago, let's say. Visiting Florida, very different. Yes, there's Greek churches, there's Greek restaurants, some Greek cafes, but again, the common, like, let's say note is that they live far apart, but they do let's say all meet at like the church, or let's say a Greek dance, or some kind of an event. Very different from New York, though.
Επειδή γνωρίζω ότι μιλάς πάρα πολύ καλά την ελληνική γλώσσα, θα ήθελα να καταγράψουμε και ένα μέρος της συνέντευξής μας, ακούγοντας τα ωραία ελληνικά που μιλάς. Και θα ήθελα να πούμε την ιστορία όταν ταξίδεψες στην Μικρά Ασία να βρεις τις ρίζες της οικογένειας εκεί. Μια και φέτος είναι και τα 100 χρόνια από την καταστροφή της Σμύρνης.
Ναι, η καταγωγή και των δύο γονιών είναι από τη Μικρά Ασία. Ο πατέρας μου κατάγεται από τον Εύξηνο Πόντο, από τα Κωτίωρα. Ο μεν παππούς, πατέρας της μητέρας μου, είναι από το Αϊβαλί της Τουρκίας. Έφυγε πρόσφυγας στην καταστροφή. Το 2006 είχα επισκεφτεί την Τουρκία και στην πάροδο της ημέρας λέμε πάμε να φάμε κάτι και επισκέφθηκα μια ταβέρνα σε ένα μικρό λιμανάκι και με ρωτάει ο σερβιτόρος από πού είστε παιδιά, του λέω είμαστε Έλληνες από την Αμερική και μου λέει, με ρωτάει το παιδί από ποιο μέρος της Ελλάδος, λέω και οι δύο παππούδες μου κατάγονται από την Τουρκία. Του λέω για τον παππού από το Αϊβαλί και μου λέει και ο άλλος παππούς, του λέω από τη Μαύρη Θάλασσα, του λέω, στα τουρκικά μάλιστα. Και με ρωτάει ποιο μέρος του Πόντου, λέω από τα Κωτίωρα, Ορντού. Μου λέει και εγώ. Σταματάει ο σερβιτόρος, με κοιτάει λίγο περίεργα και μου λέει από ποιο μέρος, μου λέει από την Ορντού, μου λέω ναι. Φεύγει το παιδί, ξαναγυρνάει για τρίτη φορά και με ρωτάει το ίδιο. Από την Ορντού, λέω ναι. Σε κάποια φάση βλέπω ότι τα μάτια του γουρλώσανε, δηλαδή σχεδόν δακρύσανε, μπορώ να πω κιόλας. Φάγαμε, ήπιαμε, μας κέρασε καφέ, μας κέρασε κάποιο απεριτίφ, ένα γέτσι, ένα κρασί γλυκό, δεν θυμάμαι ακριβώς τι ήταν. Μας έφερε καφέ, γλυκά και φεύγοντας πάλι μου λέει χάρηκα που σε γνώρισα, μου λέει και εγώ, μου λέει ξανά, μου από τα Κωτίωρα. Λέω ναι. Και κατάλαβα το παιδί ήταν μάλλον κρυφό Έλληνας, κρυφό χριστιανός. Και μου έχει μείνει, δηλαδή είναι μια ιστορία που τη λέω ακόμα και ανατριχιάζω. Και τέλος πάντων, εντάξει. Αυτή είναι η ιστορία, ας πούμε, του Έλληνα της Μικράς Ασίας που άφησε πόνο, αίμα, σπίτια,
περιουσίες, αλλά δυστυχώς ο πόλεμος και αυτά φέρνουν.
Επειδή τον τελευταίο καιρό υπάρχουν πάλι μεγάλες προστριβές
Δυστυχώς.
με τη γείτονα χώρα και πολλές δημοσκοπήσεις δείχνουν ότι είναι ένα θέμα που ανησυχεί πάρα πολύ το μέσο Έλληνα, το πούμε, αν υπάρχει αυτό. Εσύ νιώθεις ότι μπορεί να υπάρξει κάποιο θερμό επεισόδιο?
Εγώ πιστεύω ο μέσος Τούρκος και ο Έλληνας, αλλά ο Τούρκος όχι μόνο δεν έχει μίσος για τον Έλληνα, μπορώ να πω υπάρχει και μια θερμή φιλία, μπορεί και αγάπη, γιατί δεν λέμε ψαμάτα, ο Έλληνας με τον Τούρκο συμβαδίζει σε πολλά, ας πούμε, έχει πολλές μάλλον ομοιότητες παρά διαφορές. Δυστυχώς η πολιτική φέρνει ασχήμιας, μπορώ να σου πω, και ο κ. Ερντογάν, από ό,τι βλέπουμε, είναι ένας άνθρωπος που του αρέσει να ανακατεύει τα δεδομένα και αυτά. Ευχόμεθα, λόγω του ΝΑΤΟ και της Αμερικής, να μην έχουμε ποτέ ρίξει κάθε αυτού μεταξύ των δύο χωρών. Δηλαδή το να φτάσουμε στο σημείο να υπάρχουν εχθρότητες με όπλα και αυτά, αλλά δυστυχώς υπάρχει αυτό το ποτέ δεν ξέρεις. Never say never, που λένε.
Πιστεύεις ότι εδώ το ελληνοαμερικανικό λόμπι υπάρχει, έχει παίξει κάποιο ρόλο στο να καλυτερεύσουν οι συνθήκες, επηρεάζει την αμερικανική πολιτική?
Δεν θέλω να πιστεύω, αλλά δεν πιστεύω ότι, ότι το λόμπι, το Greek American Lobby, ας πούμε, ότι έχει τη δύναμη και τη δυνατότητα να επηρεάσει έναν πρόεδρο ή μια γερουσία. Είμαστε μια μικρή μειονότητα, ας πούμε, οι Ελληνοαμερικανοί. Εγγεγραμμένοι Ελληνοαμερικάνοι είναι 1 εκατομμύριο και τώρα λένε ότι υπάρχουν 3, δεν ξέρω κατά πόσο αληθεύει αυτό. Δεν ξέρω. Εγώ πιστεύω ότι είναι παιχνίδια των πολιτικών αυτά. Δεν ξέρω αν όντως θα υπάρχει πόλεμος ποτέ. Λόγω των συμφερόντων, βέβαια.
Πάντως γενικότερα, the Americans, they do visit Greece, they
love Greece.
They love Greece.
Εγώ πιστεύω ότι, ας πούμε, ο Αμερικάνος όχι μόνο αγαπάει την Ελλάδα, τη ζηλεύει με την καλή έννοια. Ότι η ζωή του Έλληνα είναι, ας πούμε, είναι λίγο πιο όμορφη, και όταν βλέπει τον Έλληνα, ας πούμε, ζει τη ζωή του. Δηλαδή του αρέσει, ας πούμε, να βγαίνει έξω να τρώει, να πίνει τον καφέ του, να πίνει το ποτάκι του, να πηγαίνει στην ταβέρνα, να πηγαίνει στη θάλασσα καθημερινά, και το βλέπει ότι αυτό στην Αμερική πολύ δύσκολο θα γίνει. Όταν, ας πούμε, επισκέφτεται ο Αμερικάνος στην Ελλάδα, ζει την ελληνική ζωή. Έτσι δεν είναι?
In our conclusion now, in closing this wonderful interview, I thank you very much again
thank you as well.
for your consent and participation to the Hellenic American Project interviews. Let's talk about the contribution of what you do, bringing coffee to the American society as a form of socialization. Do you think that the Americans they have moved somehow towards that direction, understanding this kind of interaction among human beings? Because
Yes.
more and more we live in an era of isolation and virtual realities.
I think that COVID, the pandemic itself, brought brought distancing to people. But I think coffee brings people together. And I'm not just saying that, I think it's factual. I see how people interact when they come to the store and they're waiting online to get a coffee, and these straight conversations with people that they've never met before, which I think the COVID factor actually would, let's say, not only distance people, it would bring fear amongst society. But I think the cafe culture is very strong in New York. I think in the United States in general,
which is a recent phenomenon.
Yeah, I think it's become more more popular in the last 10 to 15 years. The Americans actually know coffee, unlike something that was unheard of 20 years ago. We had a fake cappuccino, a drip coffee, or an iced coffee, and that's all they knew. Now you walk in and they ask for very elaborate coffees that sometimes we don't even know what they are, but we make ends meet somehow.
Since you mentioned the pandemic, how you experienced the pandemic? It was a real problem. We found a way to survive those 2 years.
Yeah, we flourished during the pandemic. On the onset, it was very scary. I was very fearful. I truly thought that maybe I wouldn't be around in 2, 3, 4 months. Nobody knew what was going on. For the first 3 weeks, I worked entirely by myself and the main baker in the back, and that was it. And then there was this one lady that created a GoFundMe and was donating food to first responders in the New York City area, and she approached me and asked me, what do you think if we would collaborate and feed hospital workers and police departments and primarily first responders. And she said, I'll pay you and you just make a product. I said, I'll do one better. I said, I'll discount everything 50%. This way it's kind of a donation on my end, and then we can help each other out. And for me it was a give back and a way also to somewhat survive, at least not close shop, let's say. And that was the beginning of a new life to the store. I'm grateful and for that person, actually.
You mentioned before that more or less the census numbers about the Greek American community is 1.3, 1.5 million people. But, and this is a wonder that the numbers, but also since 2000 at least, the American-born generation is larger than the Greek-born generation.
Yeah. And
now we have this tremendous demographic shift.
Discrepancy.
What is your advice? Your not advice, but let's say your vision for the continuation of the Greek American community. How you see to see it?
I mean, we're taught as Greeks that family is everything. Here in the United States, getting married, having family, children, and I think that's lacking in Greece. That's something that it's not part of their, I guess I can't say culture because it's obviously not, it's part of the culture. I think the new generation of Greeks shies away from marriage and children. They enjoy their quote unquote freedom. And, most people that I know, I'd say it's about 2 children per family, and it's like the American average. It's also the Greek American average. And thank God for that. At least, we're keeping, the Greek family alive here in the United States.
So you think for at least one more generation, the Greek American community will survive it?
I think that the civilization will survive past two, maybe even three generations, due to the fact that we have that connection to the homeland. And you know what? The truth is that we have such a Greek, let's say, like we have Greek restaurants, Greek cafes, Greek bakeries, Greek schools, Greek churches, and it's something that's never absent from the Greek family here in the United States. So at least in the metropolises of New York, Chicago, Boston, and I can't like name all of them, but it will be something that won't be lost anytime soon.
Thank you very much for this interview at the Hellenic American Project.
Thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
A true honor.